Nothing about a global pandemic is easy. It was hard when we were locked up at home, and now it's hard even as we go back into the real world. Shamir Holmes is a licensed psychotherapist and founder of Be Ye Renewed Counseling. Welcome.
Hi, Elsa. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
I am happy to have you here. It is really important to talk about this thing known as reentry anxiety. How does it manifest itself, and what are the symptoms?
Sure. So it's the dreaded R word, and it's something that we should all get pretty familiar with hearing on a regular basis. Reentry anxiety is becoming like the newest mental health concern. It's an overall uneasiness about returning to the old normal or ways of our lives prior to COVID-19. And reentry anxiety also causes a person to feel uncertain, overstimulated, exhausted, all very intense feelings that make any transition unpleasant, particularly reentry. Reentry anxiety manifests itself when people think about COVID, the ongoing spread of it, how contagious it is, the newest Delta variant, children being at a significantly higher risk, adults needing vaccination boosters and returning to work. The research shows that Americans are experiencing the highest levels of stress since April 2020, and a whopping 49% of individuals who were surveyed feel an incredible amount of unease and discomfort when thinking about returning to in-person interactions. So that's the reentry anxiety.
I'm listening to this and it is resonating so much. It's interesting that it actually has a name. I had recently gone to a wedding and I'm a very outgoing person. I love being around people, but there was a feeling I could not name. And I think it was that where you're thinking like, oh my gosh, there's so many people, or I know that we're masked, but did everyone get vaccinated? And even the stimuli of being around so many people when you haven't been around so many people.
Absolutely. For the past 18 months, that having to get used to quarantine living in the
Yes.
pandemic, and now to just the thought of in-person interactions, socially engaging for 8 hours plus, it's so foreign and literally a brand new world for all of us once again.
So if we are having a tough time with this as adults, I think about our children and them actually getting on that school bus or walking or car ride right to school. I'm sure that many of them are feeling that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And children can be supported by their parents, Elsa, in a number of ways. And parents really just need to take this time to hear their children out, to validate them, and to really be as present as possible. I think what's most important is children will need time, support, empathy, understanding during transitioning back to school. Parents will want to address the fears and acknowledge the wide gamut of feelings and emotions that their children are experiencing, just to let them know that they are valid and it's normal, it's to be expected. Parents will want to access themselves, be accessible for very open, transparent conversations so they can get to the heart of the matter, and that's addressing the fears and just some of the underlying anxiety that the children are facing. And I'd also encourage parents to lead by example, modeling this balance between healthy concern, staying abreast with all the changes that are constantly coming our way, and also just balancing that with a healthy amount of optimism, because the studies show that positivity can go a long way during transitions such as this pandemic. And lastly, also parents can also lead by example by diligently wearing their face mask when indoors, when necessary, still adhering to the social distancing protocol and ongoing consistent hand washing. And children will always follow that solid example.
And what if these parents or other adults are feeling some sort of way going back into work themselves? How do they handle that as
For
adults?
sure. Absolutely. So, for adults who have these concerns about returning to the workplace, I would say what we know for sure is this: that there is essentially no right or wrong way to handle reentry. We're all taking this as it comes, and we just can do the best we can, essentially one day at a time. So, each of us has had a very different pandemic experience, and therefore, each of us is going to have a very diverse and unique reentry experience. This is the time, like no other, to give ourselves and other people, other adults, a lot of grace and just patience. So go at your own pace, do whatever makes you feel comfortable, given the context. And no one should, at the end of the day, feel pressure to conform to what other people may be doing. We're, again, literally re-entering a whole new world post-pandemic.
We really are. And lastly, I just want to ask you how much of your work now has been tied to COVID-19 and this pandemic since it arose?
Sure. So each and every client that I've worked with since March 2020 has in some way, shape, or form been impacted by the pandemic on
Mhm.
some level. And it really tends to be the focus of many therapeutic conversations and sessions. And my biggest takeaways are that transition is all about what works for the individual. So for the viewers at home, again, do what feels comfortable and safest for you. You can decide what activities you're most comfortable with. It's okay to go slow, test the waters, adjust your comfort levels, one trip to the supermarket or one outdoor coffee date at a time. That's perfectly normal. Just be self aware also, knowing the signs and knowing the symptoms. When it comes to mental health, if you're not a person who is overly anxious or struggles with sleep or having panic attacks, maybe there's increased irritability or sadness, you might want to check in with a mental health professional because the
Hmm.
chances are, given all that we've gone through and are still living through, you very well may be experiencing reentry
Right.
anxiety. It's
Absolutely.
okay to
Okay.
know.
So if someone is watching this and what you're saying resonates with them the way it did with me in that first question, how should they reach out to you?
Sure. So folks can feel free to reach out to me at my website, which is shamirholmes.com, as well as on Instagram, be renewed _counseling. And I'd love to connect and have more of this conversation.
All right, Dr. Shamir Holmes, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. And we'll be right back with more Midday Maryland right after this. Stay tuned.